Hello, and welcome to Writing Essentials with Mrs. Benson, the grammar edition. We are going to be talking about active and passive voice today. So, what is voice? Voice is the form a verb takes to indicate whether the subject of the verb performs or receives the action. So that might sound a little funky. So let me explain it with just the two different types of voice. There's active voice and there is passive voice. So we're going to learn about both of those today and which one is more desirable in our writing. Active voice is used to show that the subject of the sentence is performing or causing the action. So I would say that active voice is more subject focused. Here are some examples with LeBron James at the forefront. LeBron threw the basketball before the buzzer. So LeBron is the subject, threw is the verb. LeBron shot the basketball from the free throw line. Again, LeBron is the subject, shot is the verb. LeBron scored 3 points. LeBron is the subject, scored is the verb. So in all these sentences, we have active voice because the doer, the person performing the action, the entity performing the action, is in the subject spot. Now, passive voice is very different. Passive voice is used when the subject is the recipient of the action. So now I put LeBron in the object spot. The ball was thrown by LeBron. Notice now that my subject is ball and my verb is was thrown. Now LeBron becomes the object of a preposition. So he's way at the end of the sentence in this scenario. The ball has more of the primary foothold in the sentence because it's the subject. Was thrown is my verb, and then LeBron is at the very end. The second scenario, the basket was shot by LeBron. Same thing. Basket is my subject. Was shot is now my verb. And LeBron is again the object of a preposition at the end of the sentence. The score was made by LeBron. Passive voice again, because now score is the subject. Was made is my verb. And LeBron is the object of a preposition again. You really need prepositional phrases when you're using active voice in order to get the actual doer involved or a part of the sentence. So the passive voice requires what's sometimes referred to as a double verb because it has to take, the verb thrown, shot, made, and it has to have a helping verb with it. And that is our forms of to be is are, was, were, be, being, been, become. So I need that was thrown, was shot, was made. So I'm increasing my word count, but I'm using a little bit more of indirect or circuitous language. So an example of comparing the two, if you look at the bottom, John baked the bread. John is the subject, baked is the verb, bread is my object. But if I switch that to passive voice, I have the bread was baked by John. So I have to add that was in order to make the sentence comprehensible. So now you know what an active voice sentence looks like versus a passive voice sentence. What's the point? Why do we need to know this? So what? Why does it matter? So here's the deal at the end of the day, active voice is more direct and more concise. And William Zinsser, one a very famous writer that teaches writers how to write, tells us that simplicity in our writing, clear writing should really be our aim. So we want to try to avoid wordy, verbose language whenever possible. And we want to be succinct, clear, direct, and to the point. Really, truly, passive voice is usually wordier because I have to add that helping verb, those wases that we talked about, and I need to add those prepositional phrases that I didn't have to have before in order to get the doer in the sentence. In order to get LeBron in the sentence, I had to put him in with a prepositional phrase. So a good analogy is active voice is like watching LeBron play, and it gives action and makes it alive. Whereas passive voice is a little like watching gum stuck on the bleachers in the stands. It's not as active and engaging, and really the objects become the doers. And we know that's not really stimulating. Most of the time, you want to use active voice. So, when would you prefer or desire to use passive voice? Writers still use passive voice, so why do they do it? And when you're a very aware writer, you can use it with a very specific intent. So when you're intentionally trying to hide the subject, you will use passive voice. Think of a politician, maybe. A politician might say, the mistake was made by someone. So now the culprit, the person that made the mistake, is very much hidden until the end of the sentence and a little less important. When you are intentionally trying to minimize the guilt of the subject, for example, a cheating boyfriend might say, cheating was committed by me at some point. Notice how the me is buried in the sentence. It's not at the forefront in the primary subject spot at the very start of the sentence. I cheated is much more clear and direct about who deserves the blame. But in this scenario, it's very clear that this person's not really wanting the attention drawn to him. I can see that this cut off a little bit. Hopefully you can read it. Let's see. When passive voice, you might want to use passive voice when it better emphasizes the main point of the message, such as children were harmed by the drunk driver. This is to emphasize, hey, children were hurt. Children typically would be the object of the harm, so they're the object, but we're making them the subject because we want to emphasize that children were hurt, and that's really significant. So passive voice isn't bad. It can be used very effectively and intentionally for a specific purpose. The problem is sometimes we lean into passive voice sort of unknowingly, and therefore increase the wordiness and the sort of circuitous language in our writing, and that's not really great. So we want to make sure that we're using active voice as much as possible so that our writing can be alive and engaging and direct. We can be clear and direct when we stay in active voice. All right, I look forward to reading some of your writing in active voice. Take care.